Okay, we have some news in the podcasting space. The Joe Budden Network, which also includes the Joe Budden Podcast, is now going to be hosted on Patreon.
Effective immediately, the Joe Budden Podcast will be bringing 2 additional bonus episodes to Patreon.
I think this is something we need to dig a little deeper into, because a lot of headlines are saying he's moving to Patreon, and that's just not the case. Some of his content will be exclusive on Patreon, just like other podcasts, The New Abnormal, dare I say Tasha K, The Lincoln Project. A lot of podcasters and creators are sort of, have exclusive content on Patreon. So again, this is nothing new. But this is a different relationship. He'll also have an advisory role over there.
In addition, Joe Budden has been brought on as head of creator equity at Patreon.
Sounds like a pretty dope position because, you're going to have a seat at the table and you will have some say-so in terms of how creators are being treated, how creators are being paid, if there are enough minority creators over there. So, that could be pretty big and that could be pretty major when it comes to content creators, definitely minority content creators. So that's a pretty dope thing right there too. Remember, the guy came from Complex, then he went to Spotify, and whatever happened with the Spotify deal, the bottom line is he wasn't getting what he thought he was worth. And that's not unusual because that's how Spotify works. They just don't pay creators. They just don't do it. I mean, I'm not quite sure how creators can sort of band together and just put it out there that, Spotify is actually not paying content creators. They are paying them pennies on the cent. Pennies on the cent, if that even makes sense. But that's how much money they are not getting. They're just not getting paid over there at Spotify. But the deal didn't work. So, he was like, hey, you know what? I'm a bounce, and you could tell he was sort of a little upset about that because, he had the number one podcast over there. I think it was in 2019. And, they didn't want to pay him what he was worth. And so he left, right? And then all the bloggers, all the sort of, black Twitter and black YouTubers, they all went in on him like, hey, he's done, yada, 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 you're trying to cancel the guy, right? And all he's trying to do is just put out content on the podcast. And, they're just trying to, cancel him for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure why. But you kind of have to really think about where this guy has come from, point after point after point, company after company after company. He has always been able to have a voice in this space. I mean, a lot of people think he's a giant in this podcasting space. Just what he says, his content, everything. He does the podcasting. He also went on a road before the shutdown. And I sort of like those live podcasting events. They were on stage, had a big crowd. People were into it. That's pretty cool, and something kind of new too, right? So again, now he has an advisory role, head of creator equity, again, a seat at the table. I think this is going to be a good thing for him. Now, remember, this is not him moving from YouTube over to Patreon. This is just, a three-tier subscription service where he will provide exclusive content.
We will be releasing 2 additional episodes of the Joe Budden Podcast live on Patreon. We will be bringing bonus episodes, bonus footage, behind-the-scenes clips, more unwanted opinions, more unwanted mall political takes.
And I think there's a $5 or $10 or $15 and then a $25 tier, a subscription service. And, you'll get like exclusive content, some clips and things of that nature. So, and again, this is not new. A lot of podcasters have these subscription services on Patreon. It just works that way. I mean, it's pretty, sort of straightforward. And again, this is not an exclusive deal. This is non-exclusive. So this is basically at will. When he's ready to bounce, he can bounce. When they're ready to say, hey, I'm ready to bounce, they can bounce. It's non-exclusive. No one owns anything. The only person that owns the IP, the masters, would be Joe Budden. So again, that's a pretty good deal. Now, he said something really, again, if you just look at his video and when he's ranting and everything, he says something that's pretty interesting in his video.
And for me, it takes so much to try to convince people to not put their intellectual property places for free. Because then they start coming up with technology to monitor your mood and your feelings and who's in the room with you and who's not in the room with you and if you're depressed or if you're sad, and they start doing all types of shit.
This is specifically what I was talking about in a previous video I posted. I will leave a link in the show description. It is about the Spotify speech recognition patent that was just granted earlier or last month. Again, this, had been in the works since 2017, and it was just granted, I think, on the 12th of January, the speech recognition patent. Basically, what he's talking about in that short little clip I showed you was something called environmental metadata. Now, what environmental metadata does is it collects the sounds around an individual's, environment. So basically, if you're speaking into your phone, speech recognition, this patent, this AI will have the ability to figure out your gender, your age, your accent, everything else. And then it will also be able to pick up those environmental sounds around you. Where are you? Are you near a bus? Is a bus driving, passing by your home? Are you near a metro? Are you near a coffee shop? Are you near a park? Are you outside? Are you alone in a small group? Are you at a party? That's environmental metadata. Not quite sure why they want to collect all this data from individuals, and I'm not quite sure how that data that they collect will give us as users, a better experience. It's not. They're going to use this data, and they're going to sell this data to their advertisers, and who knows who else, just putting it out there. So this environmental metadata based on their speech recognition patent, this is some scary stuff. So be afraid of this, and just make sure that if there are other services that, that's basically the same price, you may want to move over to them. Well, there you have it. So thanks for watching. Until next time, peace.